What's going on, everyone? Welcome into my power rankings. We are at the close of the NBA season. It's time to evaluate where each team is in the Eastern Conference for either a tank, a rebuild, a semi-competitive roster, a playoff roster, or a finals contender. I'm going to break these down into 5 different subsections. We'll get into each one as we move forward. So let's go ahead and let's hop right into it. We will start with the rebuilding teams. Now, it has been very clear throughout the season that these 3 teams are in a complete rebuild. Washington has a ton of young assets. They've made the right moves, especially at the trade deadline. A lot of people are critical of trading for Trae Young and Anthony Davis, their injury history, their effort history, so on and so forth. But the value that they got both of these guys for is pennies on the dollar. Now, yes, Trae Young needs some type of extension. Anthony Davis is going to have long-term conversations with the Wizards over the offseason. But once again, they really got these guys for a whole lot of nothing. It could definitely be a short-term or long-term play here. If Trae Young decides not to stay with the Wizards, which I think he will because the Wizards might be the only one to give him a big long-term contract, it's kind of similar with Anthony Davis given his age and injury history, but holistically, the plan here is working. The tank is going beautifully. I am loving what I'm seeing from the Wizards. It seems that they're doing all of the right things, and they have a potential chance to get another top 4 pick. Great tank job from the Wizards. Speaking of great tank jobs, we're 50-50 with the Indiana Pacers. They traded away their first-round pick for Ivica Zubac along with Benedict Mathurin. They got significantly worse because of it, because Mathurin was really one of the primary scorers for this tanking Pacers team. Now, the big evaluation is what will happen to their first-round pick. If you're not familiar with the situation, when they traded for Ivica Zubac, they kind of made it to where it's a coin flip on whether or not they get to retain their first-round pick. So if in the lottery their pick lands between 1 through 4 or 10 through 30, they get to keep their pick. If their pick lands somewhere between 5 and 9, the Los Angeles Clippers get to keep their pick. And right now, it is a 52% chance that the Pacers are a top 4 pick and a 48% chance that they're a 5 through 9 pick. What does that mean? Well, I just kind of laid it out for you. It's a coin flip. The Pacers have a slight edge in this, but it is a major gamble for sure. If, in my opinion, the Pacers were to make it back to the finals next year, it would have to be with one of these rookies being a major contributor to it. This rookie class is stacked with win-now players. There's not a lot of quote-unquote development guys here in the top 3, especially Debansta, Boozer, and then you've got the Kansas guard. I'm blanking on his name off the top of my head, but there's so many other valuable players that can contribute to winning right now. Darren Peterson. Excuse me, guys. That's the Kansas guard, one of the phenoms. So that all being said, where did the Pacers go into next season? It's all going to depend on the draft lottery. Very curious to see how that plays out. Let's move on and talk about the Brooklyn Nets. We seem to have been talking about the Nets being a tanking team outside of the Kevin Durant years, I guess. For quite a while. Ever since they traded away or traded for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, this organization has been an absolute wreck. It does seem that they're slightly moving in the right direction, although guys like Michael Porter Jr. don't really line up with this timeline, and he's cranking 25 points a game. There's just a lot to be said about where Brooklyn is heading as a franchise. It doesn't seem like they have their franchise guy, but I actually made a whole YouTube video about the Nets and their lack of top 5 picks over the last 20 years. Go check that out for sure. It's definitely worth a watch because it's baffling with how bad that they've been, the amount of number or top 5 picks that they had not have because they've traded away for guys like Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. So all that being said, this is one of the years where they could actually have a top 5 pick. I want to see what they do with it because we haven't really got to see that much at all in the last 20 seasons. So these are my rebuilding teams. Now, some of these teams here could also be qualified as a rebuild, although I will say the Charlotte Hornets are moving in the right direction. They've been rebuilding for a decade, especially ever since Kemba Walker left the team. The Milwaukee Bucks, what are they doing with Giannis? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to try to build around him? It doesn't seem like they have many assets to make trades. Milwaukee is not a free agency destination. Giannis continuously shows his discontent there. I see rumors every now and then about them moving Giannis, about taking calls for trades. But then on the flip side, I then go and see Giannis say, oh, I want to stay in Milwaukee. It doesn't make any sense. It's a back and forth battle of he said, she said. We'll never really get to the bottom of it, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in the summer. But for right now, they're losing a bunch of games. They're trying to improve their odds in the lottery, but as of right now, it's not really working. A meaningful lottery pick is like top 6 in most drafts. Honestly, if you get the 8th, 9th, maybe even 10th pick in this year's lottery, you're sitting there with a franchise player on your hands. This is one of the most talented draft classes in NBA history, so really excited to see what happens there in Milwaukee with all of the different storylines that we could talk about. Now let's move on to Charlotte. They're competing in the play-in. Now, do I think they're a serious playoff contender? No, they're not going to win a playoff series outside of maybe a shocker versus Detroit, and that is if and only if Cade Cunningham is not healthy. If Cunningham is playing, there's no chance the Charlotte Hornets can compete with them. I would say a gentleman's sweep at best, maybe a 6-game series. So they're a semi-competitive franchise. What they've got going with this young core, LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, Brandon Miller, even Miles Bridges, a bunch of other rookies as well. I'm really curious to see what direction they go into this offseason because, yes, they have been improving. I believe that they are 15 games over 500 in the last 3 months, which you could not say about any other Hornets team for quite a while. But, and this is a big but, you got to start paying some of these young guys. Brandon Miller is going to be due for a contract extension pretty soon. LaMelo Ball is going to be making a lot of money. Now, Con Knipple, you've got 3 more years of rookie contractual control, but Miles Bridges as well has, stayed out of the spotlight off the court and has done his job on the court. Will he start to garner some interest here? That's all a bunch of ifs and I don't really knows. So Charlotte has got a lot of questions this offseason about how they want to operate as a franchise. Do they want to put their franchise in the hands of LaMelo Ball? That's going to be the big question. Now we talk about the Chicago Bulls. It seems to me that they just refuse to be fully competitive. I thought they fielded a pretty competitive team a few years ago. It seems like they had tried to early last season, and now they're just dumping all of their assets. The Josh Giddey build might be in place here. I mean, Giddey has played at an all-NBA level when he's healthy. Once again, the health is a major concern to me. I'm wondering if that can actually be your franchise piece, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on that as well. There's a lot of teams here in the youthful parts of their careers or their franchises that I'm just so curious as to where they end up going in direction of a guy like Josh Giddey. Oh, excuse my cat. Come on, pop down. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Do they build around a guy like Josh Giddey? Do the Hornets build around a guy like LaMelo Ball? Do the Bucks go with a guy like Giannis, who has been there and been loyal, but obviously shows signs of limitations as to how far he can carry a Bucks team that's not built to win a championship? Giannis is one of the best players of all time, but he is limited. Just like Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant player in NBA history, had so many different things that he could not do on a basketball court. In this day and era where utility is the number one skill trait out of all of your franchise pieces, how do you build around a guy like Giannis in a game where pace and space is the key, especially in the regular season? That I do not know the answer to, and that's what I want to see here from the Bucks, the Hornets, and the Bulls. Now we're going to talk about our playoff teams. The playoff teams in the East are actually all really interesting. The Heat are in here just because I think pretty confidently they're going to win the play-in tournament as well as the Hawks. I would put it as a toss-up between the Hawks and the Hornets, but as far as size goes, Jalen Johnson, I already made a TikTok about him. I'll make an NBA long-form video about him. I think he's a top 10 player. Some of the advanced metrics, the nerds out there, they don't think he's a top 10 player, but I look at his impact while I'm watching the game, and it seems like he's being forced to be in spots that he's uncomfortable with, and he's still succeeding at a pretty high level. That being said, let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Can they win a playoff series? Yes. Can they win multiple playoff series? I just don't think so. We've seen what this team looks like at the height of Joel Embiid, Maxey, Paul George, and VJ Edgecombe, and they're good. They're a very good team, but they're not a great team. That's what you got to be to win in these playoffs. Right now, the Philadelphia 76ers, the biggest concern is health. Paul George is coming back, or should be coming back, from his PED suspension. Is it a PED? I think it's just a drug suspension. Either way, that's something to look out for. The Toronto Raptors, they're still very young. The one other thing that they don't have to me is like a certified closer. Brandon Ingram is probably the closest thing to that. We've seen him actually play at a really high level with the Raptors, and a fairly low usage rate as well, I might add, for his kind of play. He's always been that KD light type guy. He can average 20 to 22 points a game on very good true shooting, but the mid-range back down post-up work, the isolation stuff 22 feet out, it just doesn't strike me as like quote-unquote good, efficient basketball in this day and era. So I've always kind of knocked him a little bit. Maybe I should put some more respect on his game. I really like the Toronto Raptors holistically, but as a playoff team, it does not seem that they are in the position right now to compete for a finals run. Now we could talk about the Orlando Magic. And this team I've been very back and forth about all season long. I think out of all these teams right here that you're looking at, the Orlando Magic have got to be the team that nobody else wants to see right now. Paolo Banchero is finally back in his role as a hard pick and roll guy, a downhill player who tries to get to the basket. The pull-up mid-range stuff, my God, it's some of the worst stuff I've seen in NBA history in terms of efficiency numbers. But him on the pick and roll, headed down to the basket with a full head of steam, I mean, it's almost like LeBron James at points in his career. Now, specifically about his downhill play. So Paolo, defensively has been improving as well statistically, but when you watch him on the court, it just looks like he belongs more. I think he went through a stretch early on in the season where he kind of had like a Ben Simmons moment where he was just not playing in a role that was comfortable for him. He was forcing a lot of stuff, and it was kind of killing his confidence. But now, playing at where he's at in the month of March, where he's averaging 25 a game on like 65% true shooting, or maybe it's a little less than that, but regardless. Paolo Banchero, the Orlando Magic, the way that they play basketball with Anthony Black and Suggs, Franz Wagner might be coming back from injury pretty soon. It's a dangerous team in the Orlando Magic. If they had played a whole season together, I would 100% put them into this category. Finals contenders. Now, can all four of these teams win the finals? No. But can they contend to get to the finals? Absolutely. The Boston Celtics, out of all four of these teams, I will start with them. They're my favorite to come out of the East, and that has been the case the entire season. Jason Tatum was my X factor. Could he come back and play at a serviceable level? And right now, he's already doing that with the potential to continue to grow back into his role that he had starting or at the closing last season. A borderline top 5, definitely top 10 player in the league. Can he return to that by the playoffs? Maybe, probably not, but still a maybe. I mean, if you're sitting here saying, well, of course he's not going to return to a top 10 level, there were lots of people who said, of course he's not going to come back this season less than 10 months off of a Achilles tear. So don't doubt Jason Tatum or this Boston Celtics team. They're so good from behind the three-point line. Their one weakness, though, is they live and die by the three. Can they continue to thrive off of that type of basketball? I don't know. Last year, it bit them hard against the Knicks, but you saw them make that finals run where they absolutely were hammering teams from three in the Eastern Conference. Now we move on to Detroit. Now, this is the next best team in the conference when they're healthy. Well, Cade Cunningham, What is he going to look like when he comes back? In my opinion, that is the biggest if of the Eastern Conference right now. Without Cunningham, I believe the Pistons could be a first-round bounce, even if they are still the 1 seed. You know, they can win some gritty games with Jalen Duren and a bunch of other guys like Isaiah Stewart and Tobias Harris playing physical basketball. But Cade Cunningham, the flag leader of this ship, if he's not in it, I just don't know how far they can get without him. And that goes to say, if he's not in it and healthy, I don't know how far they make it. So Cunningham, I wish him all the best. I hope he gets back soon, completely healthy, and makes a great run in the playoffs. But as of right now, I'm very worried about where they're at as a team. The next two teams, both of them, to me, have a major glaring issue. I already dropped a video about the Cavs. Let's talk about both of these teams. So, for starters, the New York Knicks. This offense with Mike Brown, I have not been very impressed by it. The defense as well has taken a step back from Tom Thibodeau. I thought they could use like a new voice. I thought Mike Brown maybe could get them over the hump, but it seems like they're taking a step back. The system does not work with Cat right now. He is definitely not the style center, especially now that he just looks like he's lost a step athletically. Jalen Brunson still playing at a really high level, but the load on his shoulders is heavy as usual. And we saw down the stretch of the playoffs last year, it cannot only be the Jalen Brunson show. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart are going to have to step up, and none of them really have that elite bag on the offensive side of the floor to kind of take some of that load off of Brunson. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And then now we talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is just a flat out effort issue. And like I said, I already made a full video talking about the Cavs' effort issues. The first half of games are atrocious. The second half of games are legendary type stuff. You know, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, a lot of decent role players like Keon Ellis. This roster is kind of built for a finals run, but, and this is a huge but, I've yet to see them compete at a high level against winning playoff teams. Versus OKC, did not look good at all. Versus the Celtics, they've struggled. The Knicks, they've been inconsistent. And then the Pistons, it just seems like they're getting thrown around in the first half of some of these games. So I want to see the Cavs step up to the moment. It seems that Donovan Mitchell does it every single time in the playoffs, and some of these other players shrink. James Harden, what is he going to look like in the playoffs? This is the lowest usage of his career in the last 10 to 15 years, ever since he got traded from OKC to Houston. So I'm curious to see what he looks like in the playoffs, maybe a little more rested than usual. So that being said, those are my power rankings. I'm curious to see what y'all think of this. Are any of these teams being slept on? Am I overrating some of these teams? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.